all of our listeners who have e-commerce stores should definitely be considering seriously. I know I am. So Paul is a leader in conversion optimization, digital leadership, and UX design thinking.
Check that there's a market for it before you go to the effort of building it.
If you understand the intricacies of a customer journey and their user experience, it has a direct impact on customer lifetime value. And I don't think that's ever been more critical.
That kind of thing, larger companies can't compete with. That is your competitive advantage.
He shared on how foundational customer experience can be, not only for increasing immediate sales, which is something we all want to do, but also for building those long-term customer relationships, building your brand. Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked podcast. I'm Lewis Smith, the founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Eardley. Now, when we're not recording the podcast episodes, we're running our own e-commerce businesses and helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. Keen to build your own 6 or even 7-figure business? My book, The Home Turf Advantage, is your blueprint for launching a profitable online store. Grab your copy at htabook.com today and let's get you started. Now sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast. Welcome to today's episode where we are joined by Paul Boag, a maestro of digital conversion and user experience. Now, Paul's got over 27 years of shaping the online landscapes for giants like Puma and Doctors Without Borders. So Paul brings a treasure trove of insights into enhancing e-commerce businesses to today's episode. Yes, Lewis, this was a very enjoyable conversation to have with Paul. He really breaks down user design principles and actionable strategies that we can take away. And we got into a great conversation about designing a customer experience that wows your customers and will elevate you beyond any competition that you have. We'll explore how that customer experience really makes a huge difference. And it's not just about the website, it's a holistic view that he takes to improving a business, and that's crucial for capturing and retaining customers in today's digital marketplace. Yep, it certainly is. Get ready to dive deep into the world of customer experience and optimization. Paul's going to reveal how minor tweaks to your website's user experience can lead to major leaps in customer satisfaction and, more importantly, business growth for you. And Paul's got some experience in quite an interesting industry that might surprise you. I won't mention any more, but keep listening to find out more. So let's gear up for some golden nuggets for making your e-commerce store not just functional, but fantastic. Today, we're thrilled to be joined on the Dropship Unlocked podcast with Paul Boag. So Paul is a leader in conversion optimization, digital leadership, and UX design thinking. He has over 27 years of experience working with clients such as Doctors Without Borders and Puma. He is the author of 6 books and a well-respected presenter. So it really is an honor to have you with us today, Paul. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today.
Well, that's all right. Honor, I think, is maybe a bit of a strong word, but we'll go with it anyway.
No, absolutely, Paul. I think you've got lots of insights you can share with us today about customer experience. But let's start with the basics initially. Why do you think customer experience is a fundamental part for e-commerce success?
I mean, if you want to kind of strip it back to its absolute minimum, what it ultimately comes down to is the cost of acquiring a new customer is a lot higher than the cost of maintaining an existing customer. So if you provide a good customer experience, those people will come back to you again and again and again. And that means that you have to spend less on marketing and acquiring those new customers. Also, if you do a really good job, those existing customers turn into advocates and they will be encouraging others to buy. So that reduces your marketing costs still further. So from a purely commercial point of view, it's extremely worthwhile. And then there is another factor that a lot of people, especially when they're new to e-commerce, overlook, which is customer lifetime value, which is how much a customer is worth to your business over their entire engagement with you. And if you can get that number up, by getting people to come back again and again and again, you're going to end up with a much more profitable business. So from a purely, kind of cold hard cash point of view, that's the benefit of it. But there are lots of other benefits as well. Building a good reputation amongst people means that you get lots of positive reviews, and those reviews in turn into more business. So just a nice thing to do, to treat other people well and to give them a good service. And so there's all that aspect to it as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's so much to dig into there. So we talk about customer experience. When you look at a business and work with a company, when you think about how to improve their customer experience, are you purely focused on the website, or do you take a more sort of holistic view at the business model itself?
Yeah, you've got to look at the experience in its entirety, because oftentimes one part of the journey can fall down. So you can have the best website in the world, but if your products are delivered, thrown through the door like Amazon seem to do these days, where they get vaguely close to your house and then just throw the parcel at you, that undermines the experience, or equally, if the emails you receive are confusing. You're not sure when it's going to be delivered, or whether the order has gone through properly, or when something goes wrong. That's often a situation that people really underestimate, that if something goes wrong and people need to complain to you, that is actually one of the best opportunities to turn what is a disgruntled customer into an advocate for your brand. And I could give you a real example. Recently, that I ordered a sleep masky thing that I wanted. So I got that through, tried it on. I didn't find it particularly comfortable. I wasn't really quite sure about it. They said they had a return policy, a 30-day return policy or whatever it was. And you always go into those situations with a natural kind of, yeah, really? Am I going to have a problem here? Is it going to be a battle? I contacted them and they said, absolutely fine. We've already issued your refund, but you can keep it. Because they knew that the cost of actually returning it and restocking it was so high, they might as well just give it to me. And of course, that's turned me into a massive advocate for them. What amazing customer service, what great people. I'm now promoting them on this podcast, so you can actually, even a bad experience can turn somebody into a huge advocate for your brand, which is what you want.
100%. It's, they obviously made a lasting impression on you. And I've had similar experiences where you're never quite sure, are you, with returns processes, but it is a big opportunity for that company to actually turn in the detractors, the possible detractors from the website, to actually become your biggest fans, because I think they're the ones that you actually can turn around and they can actually end up being your biggest fans. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me tell you a story of the best customer experience story that I ever came across with, in my work. And it's a bit of an interesting example, so bear with me, because it's about a company called Love Honey. Now, you might be familiar with Love Honey living in the UK, although obviously you'll see why. It's a sex toy manufacturer, right? So it's not the best example in some ways to be using on a podcast, but from a customer experience point of view, they absolutely nailed it. They became the biggest retailer in the world of sex toys, right? And one of the ways that they did it, and I was working with them in this very early period, is that they recognized what they wanted to target a different market, that sex toys had traditionally been targeted at men, and they wanted to target women. And so they had to change the branding and all of the other stuff. But they also recognized that for many people, this was the first time they'd ever purchased something like this. So they went into excruciating detail to reassure their audience about all the potential pain points in that experience. So I'm worried that it's going to start vibrating when the postman delivers it, right? Or that the package might be torn, or that it might have Love Honey written on it. Or I'm worried that I won't like it because I've never bought a sex toy before. And they systematically addressed all of those. Everything is triple wrapped. The batteries are never in the item when it gets delivered. You can return it, and this is the killer, for 365 days unconditional return policy. And by the way, in case you're wondering, they didn't resell the items after that, they recycled. And so they really cared about that level of detail. And it's interesting, right? Because you might think, well, that's a very specific story for a very specific customer. But the guy that I worked with at Lovehoney, we previously worked together at a company called Wiltshire Farm Foods. Now, Wiltshire Farm Foods sell frozen ready meals to old people, okay? So totally different audience, but exactly the same principle. So if you're in your 80s and you're getting frozen ready meals delivered, you're scared about this guy turning up at your door, right? Because who is he? They can't carry those, those big things that supermarkets give you, the big trays, and you've got to carry them in the house and unpack. They can't do any of that. They don't really, are a bit scared of e-commerce, so they would prefer to pay cash on delivery. So what Wiltshire Farm Foods, same guy, right, I was working with, and together we worked this out. We did police check every driver. You got the same driver every time, unlike Tesco's. They would come into your house and unpack stuff directly into your freezer for you, and you could pay cash on the door and even order with that driver for your next time. That's the power of good customer service. And that allowed Lovehoney to become the biggest in their sector. It allowed Wiltshire Farm Foods to compete with the likes of Tesco's, even though you could only buy frozen ready meals for them, and you paid a premium for it. But they could do that because of their level of customer service.
Fantastic. I mean, you can learn so much there because they're across completely different industries and different audiences, but the rules remain the same. So we can apply this across our e-commerce businesses. Everyone listening today, no matter what niche we're in, there's things you can pick up on. So if you were to work with a business, and when you work with Lovehoney or Wiltshire Farm Foods, how do you go about finding out what's really important to customers straight away?
That's a really good question. So that's where you need to do user research. And there are typically two types of research I do. One is qualitative and the other is quantitative. So in quantitative research, you're looking at speaking to a large number of people. And that is typically done through some form of survey, right? So sometimes you might use something like Pollfish. Pollfish.com is a survey tool, and you could put your survey on there, and then they'll do recruitment for you for like $1 a person that you want to get, responses from. And I'll ask them about their pain points and their objections, why they might not buy from a company, that kind of thing. Alternatively, sometimes I just run a single one-question survey on my e-commerce sites. In fact, most of the e-commerce sites that I'm helping with has a one-question survey that only appears on exit intent, so as somebody goes to leave the website. So we're not interrupting their buying experience, because there's nothing more annoying than an overlay saying, hey, sign up for our newsletter, or did you have a good experience today? And you haven't even interacted with the site yet. So it only appears on exit. And it asks one question. If you decided not to buy today, it would be great to know why. And then I list a whole load of different reasons and allow another field as well. And that is the most powerful tool possible for understanding what users are doing. So that's the quantitative side. On the qualitative side, I like to do some user interviews. Now, my favorite type of user interviews, which I actually did with Wiltshire Farm Foods, is when I went to the people's homes, right, and met with them. But if you can't do that, that's absolutely fine. But when you chat with these people, like with Wiltshire Farm Foods, I went and visited one lady, typical really old lady with hundreds of cats everywhere. And, she was running off of what was effectively a Windows 95 computer. And, there was you get all of these insights that help you to understand their struggles and their pains and their frustrations with the situation. And that's how you learn those kind of pain points and those objections and the issues that you can help with.
Fantastic. And that's the the foundations then for everything else, like with Love Honey or Wiltshire Farm Foods, it's all about what is the actual most important things to the customer before you start designing a business that actually doesn't suit anyone because you haven't done that foundational piece first. I think for our e-commerce sites, we can easily set up that survey for exit intent to find out what's stopping people, and we can get surveys in place. And I think for that qualitative data piece, I would interpret that as maybe just in the Klaviyo email flow after abandoned carts or welcome series, you email them automated and you ask them if they can provide a phone number so you can give them a phone call to get in touch with people to ask them those sort of questions. And when you're speaking with people, customers, to understand their pain points, what are the sort of questions that you ask them in that qualitative research piece that you do?
So I often ask them, so let's say you're selling glasses, I don't know, but it doesn't really matter, whatever, okay? You want to sell glasses, right? So you say, well, where do you currently buy your glasses, right? So you find out that first, and then you say, okay, what do you hate about that experience? What makes it hard? What makes it challenging? So then you can, they might go, oh, they're often, I'm talking about drinking glasses, by the way, I should have said that rather than these glasses. Oh, I've had several that have arrived cracked and damaged, right? Okay, so now I need to make sure that I address that on the website, that we triple wrap things or whatever else. Or it might be, I'm never sure whether they're dishwasher friendly. Okay, so that needs to go on the website. And you just basically unpack what their concerns and their feelings are, just in quite an informal, chatty way. And, and people love to have a moan, or perhaps that's a British thing. Now, it might be very specifically British, but we love a moan. We love to say what's wrong with an experience. And, and I know Americans are the same. If they get bad customer service, they will let you know. So getting people on a roll of moaning about the little things that frustrated them is often a good way of identifying where you can have a competitive advantage.
Yeah, a good way I've found to find that out is actually scraping some reviews of like competitor websites in the same industry and picking out common themes that people are getting annoyed at or reasons why they were looking for products in the first place is another way. So for our e-commerce sites, we don't have the luxury, we don't have the control over the product itself or the packaging because we're often drop shipping from suppliers. So we can't directly influence necessarily the products or the packaging. So I wonder if you were to work with our type of website, the biggest impacts we can make is on the communications to the customers, the ads and the website in terms of everything, the communications to a customer. What sort of changes, like best practices, I guess, would you be making with that data that we've picked up? How would you apply that to a website to make a difference to that customer experience?
Yeah, a lot of it comes down, if somebody has got as far as visiting your website, they've already expressed a desire for the product, right? Because they've clicked on an ad or search results or whatever else. So they want the product. And on websites, we spend a lot of time convincing people they want the product when that's not the primary problem here. The primary problem is objection handling. It's understanding why they might decide not to act, right? And so that's why I run that survey that I mentioned about if you decided not to buy today, it would be great to know why. Because you want to get to the heart of what that is. And it can be a variety of different reasons. It might be that they don't trust you. It might be that they don't know whether the product, your particular version of the product, will fulfill their need. Or it might be that you don't answer some specific questions about the product. It might be the price is too high. It could be a lot of things. Some of those things we can influence and some we can't. So let's take, for example, the delivery example that I gave you, right? Like you say, you can't control the packaging. You can't control whether that glass is going to turn up cracked or not. But what you can do is very clearly say on the website, if you are unhappy with the product in any way, you are welcome to return it. And I would encourage you to give an outrageous return period, right? You can return it for up to a year. You can return it, even if you just felt in a snotty mood and you decided you wanted to annoy me and return it, right? Make outrageous claims with that, because Now, everybody freaks out a little bit about this and goes, yeah, but, it's going to cost me a fortune. People very rarely abuse this kind of stuff. The increase you will see in sales due to that will way offset the additional cost that you have that comes from, having to return a few more things than maybe you previously would have done. So don't worry too much about that. But then a lot of it is about, so really what it's about is clear communication on the website. Is saying we've got this outrageous return policy. Is saying that you can easily contact us. We will respond quickly. That's another really important one, is the speed of response to emails that you receive and those kinds of things. So a lot of it's about objection handling. A lot of it is about communication and back and forth. Letting people know what's going on with their order when they've placed it is a big one as well. So when it's been dispatched, where it is at any particular time, when it's going to arrive, all of that kind of information. Oftentimes, if it's a reasonably valuable product, it's worth having end-to-end tracking so people can actually see where it is at any particular time. So it's about paying attention to that level of details. A lot of it. I mean, just think about yourself when you're out buying things online, right? What annoys you? What do you worry about? Because that will be the same with other people.
Yeah. And by doing that research as well, qualitative, quantitative, you've got those lists. So I'm going through this process in my mind. I've got these lists of objections, and then we need to then translate that onto the website to approach those. And I love the way you mentioned there, Paul, about not just talking about selling the product. Actually, what we're doing is overcoming objections and answering the difficulties that they're having in their lives that's brought them to the website in the first place. So I think it's a new way of looking at things, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, some of those objections or questions that people have are things like, why is your product better than somebody else's, right? So you are selling in that regards. Absolutely, of course you are. But it's still an objection. It's still, why should I give you my money to you rather than to somebody else? But all of that, really, you've got to think of, you're not trying to basically tell someone that they need a glass. They know they need a glass. They're on the website because they want a glass. You're telling them why your glass is better than somebody else's glass. Why I pick glasses. It's such a terrible example, but there you go.
Yeah, it works. It still works. It illustrates the point, doesn't it? Of the glass is a means to an end, isn't it? And we've got to talk about the end that people are trying to get to. And I love the point about the outrageous guarantee or the outrageous returns policy as well, because of the influx of sales and how that outweighs. And we can facilitate that, even if our suppliers won't take the return beyond like 14 days, but we suggest that we have like a 90-day returns policy or a year returns policy. We can still, get those back to a freight forwarding warehouse, sell them quickly on Gumtree and eBay to retain the sales cost that you sold that product for, and so you don't lose out. But the actual influx in sales, I guess, do you have to put a threshold in mind before you were to test like a big warranty or a big guarantee? Would you have to know the numbers up front as to what the increase would need to be?
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's the sensible way of doing it, isn't it? And, if you're doing it in a grown-up way, you would sit down and you would work all of that kind of stuff out. I'm a little bit more fly by my pants, if I'm honest with you. I like to try things in the real world and work out what happens, right? So for me, I would probably run a trial of that for a length of time and just tag customers that have got the longer returns policy, either using A/B testing if you've got adequate levels of traffic, or alternatively to do it for a limited time. The other thing that I've done before is I've set a separate landing page and a separate campaign built around just that thing, and that as a selling point. Hey, sign up now and you'll get a 365-day return policy. That kind of thing can work well. I tend to use a lot of landing pages. I mean, that's a whole nother subject, where I tailor specific messaging and specific campaigns and specific approaches to different people. Even for example, if you've got a product, well, let's go back to our glasses. I've committed myself. We might as well follow through. So there would be certain features that would make your glasses stand out. There would be one where maybe it's dishwasher friendly, another where it's super tough and durable. Another might be its design aesthetic. So, what I often do is I will create a landing page for each of those key benefits, run ads driving people to those different landing pages to find out which converts the better, so that I can learn about, well, what's the thing people most care about. So you can do things like that with landing pages as well. Sorry, I've gone off on landing pages now. I apologize.
No, that's super interesting. It all ties into that testing what's most important to customers to understand what's really going to move the needle for your business is ultimately giving customers what they need. And you can test that through different landing pages or different emails and see how, or different ad copy and see which performs the best to get a feel for what's most important. And the surveys as well. If you ask that question to customers, what's most important, I guess you get that info as well.
I'll tell you another thing that you can do if you're, because I know that a lot of people that are listening to this podcast are maybe toying with this for the first time, and you might feel slightly intimidated by the whole thing. So one of the things you can do is, even before you've got a dropship supplier and everything set up to actually deliver, you can run test campaigns to a landing page. So you run an ad that drives people to a landing page that sells the product, except when you click the buy button, it says, this isn't currently available. Would you like to join a waiting list for when it comes back in stock? And that allows you to even test whether there is a valid market there for you before you go to all the hassle of, sorting out suppliers and connecting the drop shipping and all of those other things that are involved. And that really works even if you've got an existing drop shipping business and you're talking about adding a new product or a new, something else alongside it. So that's another use of landing pages that I use a lot, And I work with a lot of SaaS apps, people that want to develop a SaaS app, sort of software as a service app. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of money to build the product. And I'm saying, well, look, check that there's a market for it before you go to the effort of building it,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're on the subject of landing pages. So, we use Shopify. The majority of our businesses that's all the way that we teach is through Shopify. So how would you go about, and do you use Shopify or do you use separate landing page providers to create separate landing pages if you're going to test different things?
First of all, I love Shopify. I've worked with them a number of times over the years. And it is personal preference, basically. If you're creating landing pages with the primary intention of just moving people through to purchase and to buy, so you're not using it for a test campaign, for example, then it makes sense to create an additional page in Shopify. And, there doesn't need to be a part of the overall site information architecture. It can be like a standalone page. But that absolutely can work. That said, I really like some of the kind of landing page builders because they're so easy just to shove something up live, quick and dirty. So things like Unbounce, for example, a lot of them have got integration into Shopify anyway. And then once you've created one of those, you can just copy and paste it for every other landing page that you do and just tweak it as necessary. So there are lots of different ways of doing it. I mean, another way, of course, is if you're only making small changes, like, for example, you're just changing headlines or copy or, that kind of thing, then A/B testing is another good way to go. Unfortunately, that's a little bit trickier than it was. It used to be we could all use Google Optimize and it was free and easy. These days, that has gone away, unfortunately, which is really mean of them and has ruined my life. But there are things like Crazy Egg that will enable you to do that kind of stuff as well. So, it costs a bit, but it's not as crazy as some like A/B testing platforms are costing $300, $400, $500 a month, which seems like a little overkill in my humble opinion.
Yeah, well, that just takes it away from sort of small business owners that we are when we first get started with this type of business. So it just puts it into the hands of the big enterprises.
Yeah, Crazy Egg is a lot cheaper. I think, it's only kind of tens of dollars per month, if I remember correctly. So if you want to play around with A/B testing, that's probably the best place to start these days.
Fantastic. And I wanted to tie back round to something you mentioned at the top of the podcast, which was the importance of lifetime value for a business and not always being focused on new customers, because obviously new customers are going to be the most expensive to acquire with your marketing campaigns. So yeah, how would you focus on improving the lifetime value of a business that you are working with?
I mean, let's be honest, that suits some businesses more than others, right? So this is where my glasses analogy falls down. You know, you're not buying glasses regularly. So as a result, you know, if you're just drop shipping a single product, lifetime customer value probably isn't going to be as big a deal if it's something that's bought just occasionally. If, however, you're selling something like pet food, absolutely lifetime value is a huge issue. And when it comes to improving lifetime customer value, it is all about the customer experience and the details of that customer experience. So it's identifying every friction point, everything that might slightly irritate people, and offering a level of service that they wouldn't find elsewhere. So that is where the kind of Wiltshire Farm Foods and Love Honey elements begin to really matter. You know, but it's also, obviously, you might be struggling to think, well, how does that interpret to my particular product? And it will be very niche for each different type of product. But what everybody can offer is a personalized, fast communication with clients. You know, there is this tendency to pretend to be bigger than you are, right? So, you know, all the communications we send to our customers are all like, you know, we are really pleased you placed an order and it's just you sitting in your back bedroom. Actually leverage the fact that it's just you. Go in with them and go, you know, oh, I'm so grateful that you bought from me. It's just, you know, if there's anything I could do to help, word everything very personally in such a way that you're there and you're giving them individual service. That kind of thing, larger companies can't compete with. That is your competitive advantage, is the fact that you can be personable, you can be friendly, you can be you with them and build a relationship. So it's about speed, it's about being personal, and it's about going the extra mile. You know, that's really it. It's not rocket science.
Yeah, it's about leaning into our strengths, which I agree, it's easy to see as weaknesses, you know, being a one-man band when you first get started. But actually, you know, you can do things that large companies can't do, or struggle to do because they haven't got, like, you know, the personalized aspect, and they even like giving your customer a call and just saying, you know, how did you get on? It means a lot that you've chosen us, and that can mean a lot to a customer to know that they're getting a call from the founder of the company because you really care about their experience. I think we can learn a lot from that, Paul. Definitely.
Sorry, the other little thing that I quite like is where things like little handwritten notes that go in with the product. Thanks for buying. And it's obviously handwritten rather than another one became this big trend on Etsy for a while. Whenever I bought stuff from Etsy, they'd put a little thing of Haribo in the box with you, you know, with the product. Now, okay, maybe, you know, if you're drop shipping, that's those kinds of things are not so easy to do. But yeah, like you say, you can call them. You can also maybe go the extra mile. If you've got someone that, say, has bought 5 times from you or 10 times from you or whatever, you might want to send them a thank you card, right? Or a little free gift or something like that. So in psychology, there is this human characteristic that says, if I give you a gift, if I do something for you, whether I give you a gift, I help you out or something like that, then you feel the desire to respond and balance the scales in our relationship, right? So if you send a customer a little out of the blue, a free gift, then that they feel the need to then respond, and often they'll share it. I'll give you a real example, right? I used MailChimp for years, right? And then one day through the post, I got their Freddy character. I don't know whether you've ever seen it. It's like a little mascot they have. They sent me a little toy through, thanking me for being a customer, right? So my immediate response then was to post it to social media because I felt this need to balance the scale and publicly thank them. And that is very different from an incentive, right? An incentive, it gets calculated into the price. So if you buy our glasses, you'll get a free whatever. That becomes a part of the transaction. But giving them a little free gift every now and again, or sending them a card thanking them, that creates this sense of wanting to give back. It creates a sense of loyalty. So any opportunity to do anything like that is really worth the effort.
And you can get outsized returns. I mean, the cost of a bag of Haribo, especially if you're buying in bulk, you could probably get them at 50p per bag. But you send that along with your high ticket products, and you're making average profits of like £300 per order. They post that to their social media, get one friend, from your 50p investment in a Haribo bag, a £300 order comes from their family member because you're the customer. You're the place that they got a Haribo bag for free from because they just placed an order with you. And it's just ways to differentiate yourself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Simple as that. Yeah, awesome. Well, Paul, I've really enjoyed our conversation on the podcast today. Incredibly enlightening. Now, for our listeners that want to learn more from you, where would you recommend that they go?
The main thing I'm doing these days is I have a mailing list where I send out weekly advice about conversion rate optimization, user experience, customer experience, that kind of thing. So you can get that by going to my website, which is boagworld.com, BOAG world.com. If you want to have a look at some previous newsletters, etc., boagworld.com/subscribe, and you can see the kind of thing that I send out. So they're more than welcome to join that if they like to.
Amazing. We'll make sure that is linked in the description or the show notes of this episode. So definitely check it out. Paul, it's been enlightening. Loads of actionable steps people can take away. Lots of fascinating insights from all different types of industries, which I particularly enjoyed getting involved into today. So thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That was a great session with Paul Boag, Lewis. I think now we can see clearly that if you understand the intricacies of a customer journey and their user experience, it has a direct impact on customer lifetime value. And I don't think that's ever been more critical.
Absolutely, yeah. His insights and the light that he shed on how foundational customer experience can be, not only for increasing immediate sales, which is something we all want to do, but also for building those long-term customer relationships, building your brand. I loved Paul's approach to weaving brand identity with that user-centric, user-focused design. It's something that all of our listeners who have e-commerce stores should definitely be considering seriously. I know I am.
Exactly. And it's impressive how actionable Paul's advice is. I'm sure it will get the cogs whirring in people's minds that are listening about how they can implement the lessons that we've learned today. And I think it's just a few simple adjustments and also some bigger changes to your customer journey. There's lots that people can take away from this episode to start making those improvements straight away.
Yeah, exactly. And for those looking to dive even deeper into this, remember, Paul has added some additional in-depth training into our premium members area as well. So if you combine that with the systematic approach outlined in my book that you can get at htabook.com, you are well on your way to transforming your e-commerce site. So visit htabook.com to get started and leverage the full potential for your online store.
Enjoying the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a review, and we might just feature it on an upcoming episode. Also, for detailed show notes and resources, head to dropshipunlocked.com/podcast.
If you found value from any episode of this podcast, please take just 10 seconds to leave us a quick 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. It helps us more than you could imagine. And who knows, you might just hear your comments on the show. Thanks for being part of our community. Your support helps us keep delivering a new episode every week.
Now it's time to answer a question that we've had in from a listener of the podcast. And remember, if you want your questions answered, simply comment below the YouTube video version of this episode. So that's exactly what Mark Chapman, 4377, has done. And he has asked, if a supplier does offer direct dispatch, aka dropshipping, would you be discussing API integrated systems to manage stock levels?
Great question, Mark. And yeah, I like your thinking. I mean, whilst some suppliers provide those live stock feeds that, like you say, you can integrate directly with our systems and you can use tools to do it, keeping our product listings updated in real time with their inventory isn't always quite the case. So it's important to understand that such a sophisticated API level integration that you talked about is more of an exception than the norm in the dropshipping industry. Certainly as things stand at the moment, not all suppliers are going to have those API connections. Some will, some you might have to take a bit more of a manual approach. More often, we'd adapt the supplier's existing systems that they have, whether that's like a portal or even if it's just a website, or maybe it's a Monday PDF that comes through. Sometimes it's just as simple as that they send through. However they do it, there are ways that we can plug in to make sure that it takes the data from what they send us in whichever format they do and plugs that in directly in to update our Shopify store on the back end. So instead of relying solely on API integrations, which yes, there will be suppliers that have those, but you'll find that some of the best suppliers, Mark, are the ones that are not as maybe set up for that kind of method as perhaps some suppliers are. It's not necessarily the ones that have these huge, great API systems that will be your most profitable and highest selling products. Sometimes it's just the suppliers that focus all their attention on making incredible products that you can then kind of help them with the stock extraction data method. So we go through all of this, how it's done. We employ a variety of different approaches to ensure that our stock levels are well managed and well synchronized. So this could include setting up periodic checks and balances, or using software and tools and Shopify apps that can just alert us to any stock changes, and then just making sure you have that open line of communication with suppliers. Again, that's one of the benefits of the home turf advantage model. You're dealing with UK suppliers. You could just pick up the phone to them if you wanted to, or your virtual assistant could, and just say, is the product in stock? So hopefully that explains how we go about it.
Exactly. And there's plenty of different ways to keep your stock up to date, Mark, but it is a great question. And there's, all explained. Inside the masterclass, we actually have a member contributed module that one of the members has created for us to share his method of keeping stock up to date. So there's different ways, and being part of a community, you can really get to the heart of how other people are keeping their stock up to date, because we all have to do it as e-commerce business owners. So thank you for all that question. We're now going to highlight a recent review that we've had in for the podcast as well. So a big thank you to Tracy Leary, who has left a YouTube comment, and she has simply said, listening to the podcast really inspires me.
Thank you so much for your review, Tracy, and I'm glad to hear that it inspires you. That's definitely one of the aims of what we're trying to do with this podcast. Before we go, I have one question for you that I'd appreciate if you could help me with. Have you left us a review yet? If not, please could you leave us a review? Wherever you're listening to the podcast, it should take you about 10 seconds, but it does wonders for us, and it's a really big part of what drives us and means we'll continue to be able to release new episodes to you. So if you'd like us to continue with the podcast and you haven't left us a review, please just take a quick moment to do so now, and hopefully we can read it out for you on the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you're walking away with insights and inspiration.
To kickstart your e-commerce journey, grab a copy of my book, The Home Turf Advantage, at htabook.com. It's a distilled guide based on real experience to help you build your e-commerce venture.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more strategies and success stories. And if you like what you heard, a 5-star review would mean the world to us, and you might just get a shout out on an upcoming episode.
And finally, thank you for deciding to spend your time with us today. We can't wait to bring you more insights on the next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.